Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, right. On the last class, we talk about the data filter. As I told you that in the future, when you see the data, especially for any information system that they just generate the file for you for especially for the sales transactions. Most of the company around the world, they have the system that can generate the data file like this. So normally the data can be just will be generated in this way. You have like so many data every and then each record of data will be recorded to append more and more records below. So that means the whole worksheet you get the same thing. Let's say we have in this example we have 7 different columns, but each record will be organized in different rows. So in order to just know the information of this file, the things that we can do easily is to filter the data instead of using the sorting, because filtering the data will not destroy the structure of the data that it has got. It just temporarily view the data or just filter the data according to the criteria that you want to have. The way to do that is that you highlight the columns that you want to do the filtering. Go to data menu, and then you see a menu called a button called filter. You just click on filter. Right now, when the filter is active, you can see that you see the blue, you see the grayish button for the filter, and each column you see the square button with the small triangle in here. So if any column filter is active, you can see that you can have the small triangle button, small square button show the funnel shape inside. For example, if you would like to see what Cindy sold for us, you want to filter just the Cindy's records. You just choose Cindy's filter and then the seller filter, and then just choose the Cindy ones. You can see that, okay, right now the data is shown like this one, and then you can see that the filter for column C or seller, you see a funnel symbol inside the square as well. That means this column is filtering. This column is filtering. At the same time, you can filter more than one column at a time. For example, if you want to also filter the buyer as well. For example, you want to filter Mr. Smith, and also you want to filter payment method, that is credit card as well. You can see that right now, if you have a look on this filtering, you can see that there are 3 columns that filters are using right now. Okay, if you don't want to use filter anymore on a specific column, you can click on the square button and choose clear filter. And then that the filtering that you are using on that column will be clear out. But if you say that you want to clear out all the filters, you can go to the data menu and then choose clear. Then all the filter will be removed, will be inactive. But right now you can see that we still have the filter that you are enabled, and you can just use it later on. But if you really don't want to use filter anymore, you just go to data menu, click on filter once again. So there is no filter button anymore in here. So when you just clear out all the or cancel the filter already, the data is still in its original state. We don't move anything at all. So that's why this one is good in terms of using filter rather than just sorting the data. But if you really want to just make the data to be permanently reorganized, then sorting is a choice. You can just use a sorting that we learned before. So in this one, you can see that we talk about filter already. Then we talk about some functions that we may be able to use. There are some if, some if else. Some if and some if else, they are the extension from the sum function. when you use sum function นะครับ we use sum function in order to find out นะครับ the sum of the values that you specify นะครับ in the specific cell. For example, if you want to find the total amount นะครับ that company sold นะครับ that means if you choose from column G นะครับ the cell G2 to G26 it adds everything in this range. But sometimes if we have some condition, for example, we say that okay, we want to know the sales นะครับ of the company, but we want to know just like specific product only. So you can see that just the basic sum function cannot distinguish different products for you. The way that we have to use that, we need to use a function that combine the ideas of using if นะครับ to screen the data นะครับ before you sum. We use sum if function. The sum if function sorry is the function that we use นะครับ sum in conjunction with if นะครับ the format of the sum if นะครับ is that we use range, criteria, and sum range. Range means that okay, what column or what cells that you may find the value to be matched. For example, if you say that you would like to find นะครับ just the record that are books นะครับ then you have to find first where is book located, and you can see that okay, books can be found in column D from D2 to D26. Then D2 to D26 will be your sum range นะครับ sorry will be your range นะครับ and then what's next นะครับ apart from that one นะครับ the criteria is the value that you want to match นะครับ with the range. So for example, you want to match book with the product นะครับ. Then when it's just like match, what will happen? It will just like add the value that is found in column sum range for you. For example, in here, if you would like to find นะครับ the quantity we sold our books นะครับ in here, you can see that I specify. Let me just like zoom out a bit. I specify the range นะครับ to be from D2 to D26, while some range is from F2 to F26 นะครับ. What will happen ครับ if you want to match book นะครับ if you want to match book, it will be like this ครับ okay. Firstly นะครับ when it found this record นะครับ that is book, it's matched with the book that we want to find. The quantity 2 will be kept here นะครับ. Next it find another book นะครับ another book is in row 14. Okay, this is book นะครับ and then you can see that number is 5, then it adds 5 for it. After that you can see that there is no book anymore. So that's why นะครับ the output will be shown as 2 plus 5, that is 7 for us นะครับ for us. So this is the way how the sum if does. And after that นะครับ I ask you to do the sum if for the rest of like the products, and you did find the quantity sold for food, toys, and movie DVD for you. You can see that sum if is quite useful when you have like some criteria to be summed, not to sum everything. After that นะครับ we learn for another function. I'm sorry, not another function yet. Another example. I asked you to find the amount of money where Susan sold for us. You can see that right now when you get this information นะครับ when you get this information, Susan just won't be long นะครับ Susan นะครับ is our criteria, and you can see that in order to find Susan, you have to go to seller นะครับ you have to go to seller. you can see that seller is from hereนะครับ in column 2 is in column 2 or column C, I'm sorry. So that means in this one, what you did for me is that you just like specify column C, C2 to C26 as the rangeนะครับ. Criteria is Susan is in C49, and for the amount of money is in column Gนะครับ G2 to G26. What is the important for this one that I want to tell youนะครับ. So everyone, you have to be carefulนะครับ. The one that is more important than the function that you have to use is about the problem. In this one, because this morning the other section they did many of them did wrongly. When I asked them to find how much did Susan sell, let's see what did they tell, what did they answer. Okay, let me filter first. Sorry, I have to filter Susan. They answer me 12. But you can see that the things that you answer to me was that you answer 1,698. You can see that the things that happened was somebody just like misunderstood when I asked you about like the amount that you sold the product, that Susan sold the product for us. It's amount of money. It is not quantity. So read the question carefully. What do we want? Do we want to know numbers of something or quantity of something or not? If that is quantity or number of, that is just like you have to find the quantity. But if you are asked for the amount, if you are asked for the revenue, if you are asked for the sales, you have to use amount paid column instead. So be careful this one. All right. After that, we finish like from what we studied from the last class already. Now you know that okay, sum if is useful for us. But when you use sum if, sometimes you may have more than one condition or more than one criteria that you need to know. For example, if you want to know the amount of money that Susan sold book for us, Susan sold book for us, you can see that in here, just sum if is not enough, because sum if you can choose just one criteria. For example, in here is Susan. You can see that Susan sold book, movie, DVD, and food. In order to just like know the product that Susan sold for us, you need to use another function to help. Another function that we can use is what we call sum if s. Excuse me, sum if s. Sum if s works similarly to the sum if, but in this function we have more complicated because we can have more than one criteria to check. While sum if you have just one criteria, you can use one criteria only to find the sum. Now let's for the sum if s, what are inside the sum if s. If you go to sum if s, the things that you see is that it adds a cell specified given by a given set of conditions or criteria as well. But right now the arguments inside, they have some range, criteria range, criteria and it will be dot 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 dot. As I told you earlier, it has like something more after that. So that means you may have sum if s followed by some range, followed by criteria range 1, criteria 1, and then you may have criteria range 2, criteria 2, and then you can have some more. So that means you can have many criteria as you want. So now let's see the difference between criteria between sum if s and sum if a bit. For sum if, some range will be at the back นะครับ if you have a look นะครับ for some if you can see that some range is on the back นะครับ is the last argument while some if s นะครับ some range come first why is that ครับ because you may have more than one criteria so that's why in order to solve this problem easily they put some range come first and then after that you can have any criteria as you like so we have criteria range 1 and criteria 1 so what does it mean so this is criteria 1 นะครับ so it means that if you have criteria range means that it's the column นะครับ or cells that may store the value of your criteria and then the criteria means the value that you would like to match with that cells with those cells นะครับ okay so in this one นะครับ let's see suppose we say that we would like to find นะครับ the value นะครับ the sum of some values in here in this case suppose we would like to find the total amount นะครับ we would like to find the total amount of food sold by Andrew you can see that right now นะครับ we have two criteria already food Andrew food is goods Andrew is seller นะครับ and you want to find total amounts in here นะครับ if you have a look it should be amount paid นะครับ for total amount this is amount paid okay so what are we going to do in this one we will formulate the sum if s นะครับ for sum if s here นะครับ I just go to sum if s because we have two criteria here sum range is the amount paid that we want to find นะครับ it's in column G G2 to G26 criteria range 1 is the goods นะครับ you go to just choose the range where the goods be found นะครับ criteria 1 is food นะครับ is food so one thing that you have to know นะครับ whenever you enter any text นะครับ when you enter any text in the box นะครับ in the function argument box like this the text must be surrounded by double quote like this นะครับ okay otherwise Excel will be confused นะครับ but for the numbers currency percentage or date you don't put any double quotes นะครับ just for text only now it asks you for criteria 2 criteria 2 is Andrew นะครับ that is our seller นะครับ so the range where we can find the seller is in column C นะครับ C2 to C26 and criteria 2 is Andrew you put double quote first Andrew นะครับ in here you can see that in this case it shows us 1080 นะครับ if you have more criteria you can just like add more นะครับ it's below นะครับ but this one we have just two criteria only that is food นะครับ sold by Andrew you can see that in this one it shows us for $1,080 นะครับ let me just like copy this formula for you first the things that this function does is like this ครับ when we just like formulate this function นะครับ okay, let me just okay. let me hide this part first in this one นะครับ when we formulate it you can see that there are 3 group นะครับ of cells นะครับ in action the first one นะครับ the purple one in here it is our criteria range นะครับ this is also criteria range to the red one and the blue one is the sum range. Okay. One thing you have to notice is that criteria range and sum range, number of cells must be equal. Three of them. You can see that the criteria range 1 is 25 cells. Criteria range 2 is 25 cells. Sum range cells must be 25 cells as well. Otherwise, the sum if s will be confused about this. Now, I'll use the knowledge that we got from filtering in order to find out this number for you. You can see that the answer here, Andrew sold food for $1,080, right? Okay. If you don't want to formulate a sum if s, how can you do the quick look? In this one, I choose the good is food. I choose food first. And then I choose the seller that is Andrew in here. You can see that these are the transactions or record where Andrew sold food for the company. So the things that we do, is that, okay, if you highlight the amount paid here, what would I like you to see? So the quick look, this one is very good when you are in the meeting room. If the management asks you that, hey, how much did Andrew sold food for us? You may not have time to just like type the sum if s. But I mean, like when you are in the office and you want to use sum if s ahead as the formula like this, it's okay. But in the meeting room, you may have to use this trick. Firstly, you filter first Andrew and food. After that, you highlight the amount paid that they want to know. Next, have a look on the bottom right corner that I circle in here. You can see that sum is 1,080. This is a quick view. You can see that it's the same amount as like we use sum if s. Count is 4. It means that, okay, there are four records for Andrew where he sold food, and average to 220 means that you find the average among these four records. So this is a quick look, but the quick look result doesn't last forever. Once you move the mouse pointer to somewhere else, it's gone. So that's why if you want to have the data to be displayed in your worksheet, you have to use the sum if s function to help. Okay, right. Okay, so for this example, to see the food where Andrew sold, we get $1,080. Do you have any questions about this example? Anyone? Okay, so if you don't have any question for this example, I have another example that I want you to do it by yourself in here. So in this example, example number 2, I would like you to find the total amount that Mr. Smith bought toys and paid by credit cards. Mr. Smith bought toys and paid by credit cards. Okay, so this one, everyone, I want you to do it by yourself. I give you 3 minutes, 3 minutes to do that. Please find the total amount of that Mr. Smith bought toys and paid by credit cards. If you get the answer already, please type the formula in the chat box so that I and your classmate can see the functions that can help showing this one. So please take your time, everyone. Find the total amount that Mr. Smith bought toys and paid by credit card for us. Okay, time's up. So if anyone who can just like have the answer already, you may type your formula in the chat box while I'm explaining how they're gonna do that. Okay, now we have 3 of you just like show the answer already. In this one, you can see that there are 3 criteria to just like find out the amount paid. So in this case, you cannot use just the sum if, you have to use sum if s. in this one นะครับ to use sum if s นะครับ we have like 4 things นะครับ or 4 arguments that you have to put นะครับ in this one you can see that okay we use sum if s นะครับ the sum range is the amount paid yeah okay we go to find amount paid here นะครับ criteria range 1 นะครับ criteria range 1 is about Mr. Smith นะครับ that is our seller นะครับ so it's located in column C นะครับ C2 to C26 criteria is Mr. Smith okay next นะครับ criteria range 2 นะครับ is for toys นะครับ toys are our goods it's in column D so criteria range 2 is from D2 to D26 and the criteria 2 is toys นะครับ for criteria range 3 นะครับ by credit cards its payment method it's on column H2 to H26 นะครับ and the criteria 3 is credit card so in this one นะครับ in this one you can see that นะครับ when we just like find out Mr. Smith นะครับ when he just like purchase the product from us นะครับ for toys and purchase by credit card นะครับ let me just fix something a bit นะครับ for the criteria 1 that is Mr. Smith Mr. Smith is the buyer นะครับ not the seller I put the wrong one it's B2 to B26 นะครับ not C2 to C26 otherwise it will not show the correct answer นะครับ in here right okay you can see that right now นะครับ the intermediate result is showing 500 นะครับ so let's see นะครับ how do we get 500 is it correct or not so the things that I have to do นะครับ I will just like use the filtering to help นะครับ firstly buyer I choose Mr. Smith first okay Mr. Smith นะครับ and then he bought toys I choose goods that are toys and then he paid by credit card I use credit card นะครับ to filter then you can see that amount that he paid is 500 นะครับ and this is like what we get นะครับ okay right okay so now let me copy this formula for you นะครับ I found that okay all of you that you did it it's just like the correct one นะครับ okay this one is the formula for this example นะครับ of the sum if นะครับ do you have any questions ครับ anyone for the sum if s that we have got okay if you don't have any questions นะครับ that's all for the sum if s นะครับ you can see that when we talk about sum if s นะครับ we have another function that coming in and it is useful as well นะครับ sometimes we don't want to just like find the sum value but we just want to count นะครับ so there are the functions นะครับ that we can use in order to count นะครับ number of sales that are count if and count if s the things that I want you to know is that for count นะครับ actually if you don't have any ideas about the count นะครับ count function will count every single sales that you highlight where there are numbers inside those cells นะครับ for example นะครับ in this one if you highlight นะครับ amount paid sales you can see that in here นะครับ count say 25 นะครับ it will count all of the sales that contain numbers but sometimes we don't want to count everything we want to count according to the criteria that we have got นะครับ so we do the same thing as like sum if and sum if s ครับ COUNTIF is a function that we use in order to count the sales according to the criteria that we provide นะครับ okay so let's see the argument and syntax for COUNTIF first นะครับ COUNTIF function we have just two arguments only range and criteria นะครับ we don't have sum range because COUNTIF doesn't sum anything we just count นะครับ the sales according to the criteria in a specific range range means the cell that we may find the value that match with the criteria while the criteria is a condition that you would like to search for นะครับ and then start counting the cell if they are matched so in this one นะครับ let me just like talk about the first example of the COUNTIF ครับ for the COUNTIF นะครับ example here นะครับ is that how many sales transaction that Cindy sold นะครับ how many transaction that Cindy sold in this one you can see that for this example นะครับ for this example if you go to have a look นะครับ when you would like to find the transaction where Cindy sold it means that you have to focus on column C where you can find Cindy นะครับ so in this one if I use filter to help นะครับ to find just Cindy you can see that there are altogether 9 records นะครับ on 9 transaction that Cindy sold the product for us นะครับ okay this one we do it without COUNTIF but if we use a COUNTIF we will count if seller is Cindy นะครับ we just specify in the criteria นะครับ for Cindy so in this one the things that we do is that we just go to COUNTIF function นะครับ after that you specify the range in here the range here means the range where we got like the seller that we want to find นะครับ in this example so in here I go to use COUNTIF นะครับ the range I specify in column C C2 to C26 and then criteria I use Cindy นะครับ I use Cindy you can see that number of record is showing 9 นะครับ the same as like when I highlight in the filter นะครับ to see number of records นะครับ where we just like filter for Cindy นะครับ this is the function that we use นะครับ if we use COUNTIF okay right okay for this example do you have any question ครับ for the COUNTIF if you don't have any questions นะครับ let me just continue the next function COUNTIF-S first before I just like come back to let you do the example of COUNTIF and COUNTIF-S by yourself นะครับ okay now let's talk about COUNTIF-S COUNTIF-S is similar to SUMIF-S ครับ we just like have many criteria นะครับ and then we have just like the range in order to count นะครับ for the COUNTIF-S we have criteria range comma criteria นะครับ so that means we can have many นะครับ we can have many conditions นะครับ many criteria inside the COUNTIF-S นะครับ but you can see that because COUNTIF-S is not SUMIF-S so the first argument is not sum range นะครับ we just cut that one off we have just criteria range and criteria นะครับ so that means if you have like 3 criteria to be tested you have criteria range 1 criteria 1 comma criteria range 2 comma criteria 2 comma criteria range 3 criteria 3 นะครับ and then close parenthesis like that okay for example นะครับ for the COUNTIF-S if you want to find that okay how many transactions นะครับ where Miss Cat purchased book from our store you can see that in here we have 2 criteria ครับ the first one Miss Cat who is the buyer book that is the goods of our store then you want to count number of transactions right because you asked for how many transactions then you have to use COUNTIF-S to help so and this one because you have 2 criteria that's why you have to use COUNTIF-S just COUNTIF is not enough นะครับ so in order to prepare the count if s here นะครับ you have to know that okay the first criteria นะครับ the criteria range of Miss Cat must be stored นะครับ in the buyer column while นะครับ book can be found in goods column or column D นะครับ so these will be used to formulate our count if s so we do the count if s ครับ in this one criteria range 1 is the name of the buyer นะครับ in here and then from B2 to B26 and I specify that it's cat นะครับ Miss Cat and criteria range 2 นะครับ is goods นะครับ goods is located in column D and we say that okay Miss Cat purchase book นะครับ so the goods that we are focusing in is book นะครับ B-OK in here you can see that it show us that okay it's 1 นะครับ for the intermediate results นะครับ for Miss Cat นะครับ transaction of purchasing book from us so in this one นะครับ let's check first whether it's correct or not นะครับ I will filter the buyer to be just Miss Cat here and she purchased book here you can see that for this one there is just one record or one transaction only where Miss Cat purchased book from usนะครับ in here so this function is correctนะครับ is that what we want right this is count if s okay for the example of this count if s do you have any questions ครับ anyone so if you don't have any questions นะครับ I have the example for you นะครับ to count for doing count if นะครับ and count if s I'll copy this problem for you นะครับ okay this is count if and this is count if s okay so for count if I want you to find many records number of records where Miss Paula purchased the product from our store นะครับ and for นะครับ and for the count if s I want you to find number of transaction นะครับ where Andrew sold food with the amount over $200 ครับ okay so for these two examples นะครับ altogether I give you 5 minutes to do that นะครับ please find the example number 2 of count if and count if s นะครับ if you get the answer already นะครับ please type your formula in the chat box นะครับ please type your formula in the chat box นะครับ you have 5 minutes please do it now ครับ everyone so for example number 2 of the count if นะครับ you can see that in this one you are asked to find out นะครับ number of records so this one must be count for sure นะครับ this one tell us that it must be count นะครับ but it might be count if or count if s this one it said that Miss Paula purchased from our store so that means you have just one criteria only นะครับ so you just use count if is enough and the criteria where Paula นะครับ purchase Miss Paula purchased from us Miss Paula is located in the column B นะครับ so the criteria range is in column B2 to B26 so in this one นะครับ we just like do the things like this we go to count if นะครับ and then we specify the range นะครับ that is B2 to be 26 for criteria นะครับ you just type Miss Paula oops sorry oh right you can see that it shows intermediate result as 5นะครับ that means we can find 5 records for Miss Paula นะครับ where she purchased from our store now let's test นะครับ in here you just go to buyer column นะครับ and choose just Miss Paula you can see that okay it shows 5 records นะครับ 5 records so this is the way to use the count if function นะครับ in order to find number of records in this case we find number of record where Miss Paula purchased from us นะครับ it's over there next we talk about the count if s in this one how do we know that it is count if s for this one if you have a look นะครับ we say that how many transactions นะครับ in here it must be count นะครับ and we say that the condition is that where Andrew sold food and so on we have many criteria then we have to use count if s นะครับ so the criteria 1 is Andrew criteria 2 is food and criteria 3 amount นะครับ that is over 200 that is criteria 3 นะครับ the difficult part for this example is that how do you gonna formulate criteria 3 because it's not just a specific number but it's the range that you have to compare so let's formulate the criteria 1 and 2 first นะครับ in here so for criteria 1 and 2 นะครับ okay we just do like this we go to count if s oops sorry we go to count if s criteria range 1 นะครับ Andrew is our seller นะครับ Andrew is our seller so in this one okay let me just clear my filter first Andrew is our seller this value can be located or can be found in column C นะครับ in column C so in this one when we do count if s ครับ criteria range 1 is in column C นะครับ the seller okay it's in C2 to C26 and then criteria 1 is Andrew for criteria 2 นะครับ criteria 2 it's food นะครับ that is the good goods are in column D นะครับ D2 to D26 and then you have double quote food in the criteria 2 lastly นะครับ criteria 3 it talks about นะครับ amount นะครับ this one is amount paid you go to highlight on amount paid here นะครับ and the criteria 3 นะครับ this one is a comparison between the given value นะครับ between the given value that is 200 นะครับ and amount paid so the one that the problem wants to let you find is greater than 200 you just enter greater than symbol นะครับ and 200 into the criteria 3 but นะครับ there's a little thing that you have to know for the criteria if it is a comparison you have to put double quote for it as well นะครับ so you put double quote greater than 200 and then close the double quote in this one you can see that it shows you 200 นะครับ it shows you it shows you 2 that means there are 2 records or there are 2 transactions that Andrew sold food นะครับ with the amount that is greater than $200 นะครับ okay this one is like the way that we formulate the count if s นะครับ okay some if s we can do the same thing นะครับ if you have to compare greater than some value or less than some value you can put the similar way as we did with greater than 200 in here now นะครับ how to check some of you said I try to use the filter but filter doesn't seem to help me in order to just like count the these records. Let's do it first. Firstly, we filter the seller to be just Andrew. Okay. Next, we filter the product or goods, that is food. Okay, this is what we get. Next, we would like to filter amount paid that is greater than 200, but what should we do? You go to amount paid and start filtering. Some of you said, can I just like tick on 360 manually? You may do it, but actually Excel has the features to filter for you automatically. Where is it? Just have a look up. It is on number filter. You see number filters. So when you go to numbers filters, you can see greater than. You click greater than, and then you just enter number that you would like to filter. In here, it said that greater than 200. You enter 200. So it is greater than 200 here. You click OK. Once you click OK, you can see that there will be two records filtered out, because both of them, the amount paid are 360 that are greater than 200. So let me do it again. If you want to filter the column amount paid, let me clear the filter first. If you want to filter the amount paid with the comparison to 200, and you say that you would like to get the records that is greater than 200 to be shown. The way to do is that you click on the filter box first. Then you go to number filters, choose greater than, and then enter value 200, because you want to just like find out the food with the amount over than 200. Then you click OK. Now it will be filtered to have the records with the amount paid greater than 200. We have two of them. So you can see that these two results are matched. We have two records. And in the count if s, we have two records as well. Okay. So that means in this one, our formula is correct. It can answer up to two different records for us. Okay. Right. This is count if s and count if. Right. So do you have any questions about count if and count if s? Anyone? Okay. If there is no question for count if and count if s, now let me talk about the function another function that you have to know. Another function that you have to know is what we call sum products. You can see that when we have sum if s already, now it's another function that is called sum product. Sum product is also a function that combine two functions together similar to sum if. Okay. Sum product come from two things products. In terms of mathematics, what does it mean somebody, can you just like tell me? You may type your answer in the chat box. Product, what does it mean in mathematics? Unisa said multiplication. Yes, that's correct. Product is multiplication. So sum product means that you find sum of the multiplication result of something. For example, if you have the data in two columns like this, sum product will be like this. It will multiply A times B, C times D, E times F, G times H first, and then they add these values together, and it tell you the total value. That is sum product. that is sum product. Sum product, you can also have more than 2 columns as well. Suppose you have another column that is x, y, z, m. And if you find some product among these 3 columns, it will be x times a times b plus y times c times d plus z times e times f plus m times g times h, and then it finds a total for you. But I mean, like in our class, we just like talk about like 2 columns table only. That is enough. Okay, but in this one, in the future, if you study for some subjects, for example, like econometrics, or if you just like talk about like some details or some advanced management science solution, you may just like use this kind of sum product in different in more than 2 columns of the data for calculation as well. So now let's see the syntax of the sum product function first before we talk about the example. So I just type sum products. Sum products. Okay, sum product needs to have array. Array 1, array 2, array 3. That are like the tables, or I mean columns that you want to find the multiplication. It might be like this is array 1, 2, and 3. And we have A, B, C, D. L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. Array 1, array 2, and array 3. Number of cells in each array must be equal. So for example, in array 1, if you have 4 cells, array 2 must have 4 cells, array 3 must have 4 cells as well. If number of cells in different arrays are not equal, you cannot use sum product because it makes Excel to be confused and it shows you the error immediately. So sum product function returns sum of the product of the corresponding range or array. As I mentioned earlier, it will be A times L times P plus B times M times Q and so on in here. So let's see the usage of the sum product in the reality. What are we going to use for the sum product? Suppose you don't have any ideas how sum product works. In this table, when you would like to find the stock value of the product that we have in the stock, you have to do like this. Okay, let me just like copy this one for you first. Okay, so in order to just like find out the stock value, the things that you may have to do is that you have to multiply price per unit of orange by its quantity. And you do the same thing with bananas and grape to get the stock value. After that, when you want to find the total, you have to sum this stock value by yourself. Okay. Right. Okay, so this is the way that you have to do in order to find the stock value without knowing the sum product function before, right? Now, we learn about the sum product already. The things that we have to do in order to find this value 122, we do like this. We set up the price per unit as array 1. Quantity as array 2. And as I mentioned earlier, the number of cells of array 1 and array 2 must be equal so that it can be multiplied one on one directly. In here, we have 3 cells on array 1, 3 cells on array 2. Then you can just use sum product. So let's use sum product function. I go to fx, insert a function called sum products. After that, I provide array 1, that is price per unit. My 1 is C69 to C71. Array 2 is quantity, D69 to D61. Just check, number of items, or members in the set must be the same. First set of array 1, we have 2, 4, 12. Second set, we have 3, 5, 8 for array 2. There are 3 members in each set. You can see that intermediate result here is showing 122, right? 122. So you get the same amount, you get the same stock value, as you just like multiply the price per unit with the quantity of each product and then sum them together. You get the same, absolutely the same one, and you don't need to waste a lot of time to multiply first before you sum them up. This is the sum product that we may use. Apart from this one, before I move on to the next example, do you have any questions about this example to find the stock value using sum product? If no, let me move on to the next example. The next example is similar to the first one, but right now, the data is separated, is scattered into these into different places. Okay, let me just prepare the data for you first. This one. Table number 1 is for the price per unit of the product. We have just the product name and its price only, and its price only. Now, for table 2, it's located somewhere else. This is product 2. Oh, sorry, table 2. Table 2 span, far away from table 1. In this situation, even though the tables are not connected like this as we did before, there's no problem. How's that? This one, price per unit can be array 1. And the quantity is array 2. It can be separated apart like this, but you can still, sorry, this is array 2, but you can still like finding the sum product of these 2 arrays. So in this one, how to do that? The way in order to do is easy. You just simply use sum product as usual. And then array 1, you specify price per unit. My one is C78 to C80. Array 2 is quantity. F85 to F87. You can see that the intermediate result is still showing 122, as we got in example number 1 anyway. So that means the array doesn't need to be continuous. It can be scattered somewhere else. But the thing that you have to know that is important in this situation is that the order between 2 tables must be the same. For example, if the first row of table 1 is price per unit of orange, the first row of second table, quantity of the product, must be the quantity of orange as well, same as bananas and grape. Because if you say that, okay, second table, banana and grape, they switch, or they reorder the quantity นะครับ like this some product doesn't know this it will multiply นะครับ first cell of the first table with the first cell of the second table in here is 2 times 3 and then plus second row of the first table times second row of the second table นะครับ and the last row of the first table multiplied by the last row of the second table นะครับ and then sum them up so if the order is wrong นะครับ the answer will be wrong be careful about this นะครับ this is sum product ครับ okay right so do you have any questions about the sum products it's easy for this one นะครับ there is nothing complicated just like make sure that number of cells are the same นะครับ and the order of each cell that you want to multiply are the same too. All right, if you don't have any questions about this, we will talk about the next topic. Now we learn about like the basic things to manage this worksheet already. You know how you're gonna find the sum of specific criteria. You can count specific the records according to specific criteria and you can just like find the multiplication result and sum after for each table already. The next thing that you have to know is that for this kind of data the table or the file like this as I told you that it is commonly found in most of the information system around the world that the system can generate the file like this for you but when we really have to use them the file in this way is not easy for us to use you can have like the data that is more effective management for the data in here rather than just use the data in this table directly for example if you want to know that okay when we would like to compare Andrew and Susan for the amount of money that they sold the product to the company you can see that in this one even you try to just create a chart from this transaction file it is difficult because Susan transactions are scattered Cindy transactions are scattered too so if you just like try to create the chart from these transaction files you see just like the point of data scattering around the chart the things that we have to use is that we have to use the technique the feature in Microsoft Excel that we call as pivot table pivot table and pivot chart to help pivot means to turn the pivot table means a table that turn different aspect of data to be in the aspect that you want to see at the same time from those organized table you can also create the chart called pivot chart from that specific table as well so normally for this kind of data file we rarely touch it we don't edit anything we don't shuffle the position if you would like to group them or doing something like grouping or visualizing the data we better use like the tools such as pivot table or pivot chart to help instead okay so now how do we gonna have pivot chart for this data the first thing that you have to do is that first okay you have to highlight all the data that you would like to create pivot table first this one it also includes the heading of the table as well so that the pivot table will show the headings otherwise if you just like highlight the data and create the pivot table will come without the caption like date buyer seller but it just like have like its data directly so in this one I start highlighting from row 1 to the last row of this data row 1 to row 26 okay so everyone just highlight the data from cell A1 to H26 A1 to H26 that cover all of the data that we have got In order to create the pivot table นะครับ we have to go to insert menu นะครับ you have to go to insert menu in the insert menu you can see pivot table นะครับ located on the left hand side นะครับ of the menu นะครับ of the ribbon นะครับ of the ribbon so it's here ครับ okay you see pivot table right so here you click on pivot table ครับ it will pop up นะครับ a box to ask you how do you gonna create pivot table firstly it asks you to select a table or range you pick already นะครับ you choose already then you don't need to do anything นะครับ second one choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed in this one we use the default value that is to create it on a new worksheet นะครับ okay so then you just click OK ครับ everyone so in order to go to use pivot table นะครับ you highlight the cells that you want to use in the pivot table first go to insert menu click pivot table นะครับ just create it as a new worksheet and then click OK ครับ so everyone ครับ when you are ready just click on OK button นะครับ it will be the pivot table worksheet pop up on your screen นะครับ so right now do anyone has any problems about creating a pivot table okay if no นะครับ just click OK button this worksheet is called a pivot table worksheet นะครับ everyone let's rename sheet นะครับ name นะครับ right now my one called as sheet 1 to be pivot table ครับ to be pivot table นะครับ to be pivot table นะครับ in this one นะครับ this table we rarely type something นะครับ we rarely type something on this worksheet นะครับ we don't type anything the things that we have to do is that we choose นะครับ the things you want to have on the right hand side นะครับ on the right hand side of this worksheet it is here นะครับ this is what we call pivot table field window นะครับ pivot table field window so if you click นะครับ everyone just click on any cells in the worksheet ครับ you can see that right now นะครับ the pivot field is gone already นะครับ how to bring it back because we need to use the pivot field นะครับ in here if you just accidentally click on the worksheet and you lost that pivot field you can see that there is a small box on the left hand side called pivot table 1 นะครับ click on pivot table 1 it brings the pivot table field back นะครับ in here for you okay let's try ครับ click on a blank cell will hide the pivot table field click on pivot table box you just like bring back pivot table field นะครับ now you should get the pivot table field back already if you accidentally นะครับ close this pivot table field นะครับ now if you click on pivot table 1 it doesn't show any pivot table field anymore what should we do นะครับ firstly if you really นะครับ close that pivot table field and you want it back first you have to click on pivot table box first okay now the next thing that you see is that there will be design menu นะครับ there will be design menu popping up because if you click on somewhere else there's no design menu นะครับ in the menu list now when you get design menu already click on design click on analyze ครับ click on analyze when you click on analyze you can see that field list is in the ribbon นะครับ is a button on the ribbon click field list ครับ it will bring back your field list นะครับ the pivot table field back to its place all right now we have pivot table field list นะครับ on the right hand side already let's continue on the next step นะครับ the next step is that we are going to choose whatever we want นะครับ in our pivot table what do I mean by whatever we want นะครับ any data that you want to be displayed นะครับ in the pivot table is the thing that ครับ there are 4 boxes นะครับ underneath the list of the field filters columns rows value นะครับ sorry columns rows and sigma value here so for columns means that if you want what field to be displayed in the column นะครับ you just drag that field or that value นะครับ into the column for example if I say that on the column I want what to say buyer นะครับ buyer then the things you do is that you drag buyer and then release at column นะครับ you can see that on your pivot table you see list of the buyer นะครับ as a column as well next if you say that you want goods นะครับ if you want goods on the row นะครับ to be displayed in each row you drag goods to the row box นะครับ and then release it นะครับ now you can see that you have goods นะครับ located in each row นะครับ after that you say that okay we get rows and columns already นะครับ if you want to have sub rows or sub column you can also have it as well นะครับ for example if you say that for the sub row นะครับ you want to have seller you can drag seller underneath goods นะครับ this one it show out นะครับ the rows นะครับ that is book food and so on and underneath book and food นะครับ and other products you have the name of the seller over there later on if you think that it's useless นะครับ you can take it out anytime you want to นะครับ now let's leave them like that first now you can see that in this table นะครับ we have just the heading that are name of buyer name of seller and products only but there's nothing appear inside the frame that I draw the red color here what should be there it should be some values inside ครับ and when you have the value inside what value in this one you say that I want to know quantity นะครับ then the things you have to do is that drag quantity to sigma values let's have a look นะครับ I drag quantity over there นะครับ you can see that in each cell it has like the value นะครับ that represents some of the quantity นะครับ in each cell นะครับ for example let me just like read the pivot table here ครับ for book นะครับ for book Mr. Joe purchased 2 books นะครับ from Susan นะครับ okay Miss Cat นะครับ purchased 5 book นะครับ sorry purchased 5 book from Andrew and grand total นะครับ Andrew I'm sorry grand total for book we sold 7 books นะครับ 5 books were sold by Andrew 2 books were sold by Susan นะครับ for the food นะครับ total number of food transactions are 16 Andrew sold 3 of them sorry Andrew sold 9 records to Mr. Joe นะครับ for food sell 4 records นะครับ of food to Mr. Smith and sold 4 records นะครับ of food to Mr. Cat so in total Andrew sold 17 records of food นะครับ we do like this okay and in total for the food นะครับ okay Mr. Joe purchased food for 16 records Mr. Smith purchased food for 4 records Miss Kent also purchased food for 4 records Miss Paula purchased 3 records of food totally นะครับ grand total food sold we have 31 records นะครับ this is the way to understand this pivot table ครับ some of you said hey but quantity นะครับ it is not quite useful for us what should we do if you say that quantity is not what you wantนะครับ take it out how to take it out you go to sum of quantity hereนะครับ in the sigma value box drag itนะครับ and then return to the listนะครับ or to the pool of the field here it's gone alreadyนะครับ so let me do againนะครับ for the quantity it was in the value before but if you think that is useless then I drag it backนะครับ, to the pool of the fieldนะครับ. okay now no more values inside this box I think the thing that is more useful is about amount paidนะครับ, then I use amount paid instead so I drag amount paid into sigma values in here now it looks better นะครับ for example if you look at the food นะครับ Mr. Joe purchased $840 food from us Mr. Smith $360 he purchased food นะครับ Miss Cat and Miss Ken purchased $160 of food from us and Miss Paula spent $270 นะครับ in purchasing food so we got the revenue from food นะครับ 1,790 นะครับ 1,790 this one นะครับ you can see that when we have this information it looks better นะครับ it looks better so in this one somebody said I want to have the dates นะครับ as the sub columns as well can I have that then let's try ครับ yeah you can have it as well นะครับ but it might make your pivot table to look more difficult to see นะครับ then if you say that oh this one is not useful for you drag it back to return นะครับ you may not want to have like that date in there what if we just use date for filter นะครับ just drag date for filter you can see that there is another level that you can just like use the date to filter as well so that means you can just like choose the date that you want to just like put นะครับ and see the sales นะครับ of the products as well นะครับ in here but if you say that no that is too detailed for me in this set of data that might not be useful for you then you just like drag it out นะครับ so that it will eliminate the date from your pivot table นะครับ so you can see that for this pivot table it try to find out the sum according to each criteria that you have set as the column and rows in here okay so นะครับ everyone I just want you to try on your pivot table ครับ just drag any columns นะครับ into any fields into any columns into any rows นะครับ by yourself I give you 3 minutes นะครับ to just like play with it before I move on to talk about like another tool in pivot table ครับ okay. in this one you can switch row and columns นะครับ for the headings easily นะครับ by just like drag นะครับ it's to switch between row and column as you like so in this one นะครับ we call it as นะครับ we call it as pivot table you can see that for the pivot table here นะครับ for the pivot table here okay let me just add the goods in there too so that I know what goods that we sold okay in here assume that we would like to create a graph from this pivot table นะครับ we call that kind of graph นะครับ or chart as pivot chart you don't need to just like drag to create the area of the chart and think about it too much นะครับ pivot table นะครับ the Excel has the tools to help you in order to create a pivot chart from the pivot table that you have got นะครับ it just like suggests you for different kind of charts that we may use or if you say that okay I'm not okay with a chart that Excel suggests to me you can create your own chart as well นะครับ so let's try this นะครับ before we create the pivot chart everyone could you please save your file first ครับ because sometimes นะครับ I have to let you know for the pivot chart and another tool after pivot chart that is what we call sparkline นะครับ and slicer sometimes when in some computer setting นะครับ when you use sparkline and slicers นะครับ that are with data visualization tools it may cause like the Excel to be crashed นะครับ so save it นะครับ try to save your data file as much as you can during this step นะครับ okay right okay นะครับ so when we have this one already we will move on to the pivot chart นะครับ in order to have pivot chart นะครับ you just click on any cells in your pivot table นะครับ first after that you click insert menu you can see that on the right hand side นะครับ on the middle of the screen นะครับ in the insert menu you see pivot charts it's over there นะครับ the pivot chart is over there so for the pivot chart here นะครับ sorry I just like circle the wrong one pivot chart is here okay you just click on the drop down list นะครับ you choose pivot chart so the chart นะครับ there are like many kind of charts for you you can just like choose นะครับ whatever type that you want to have for this example นะครับ because I have like sub heading for the rows as well so that's why in this example นะครับ pivot chart cannot suggest any chart for me then I think okay then I just like use this one I may use cluster column to help okay let's try if I choose cluster column นะครับ as the chart that I want to have นะครับ this is my cluster นะครับ this is my cluster column chart it tells us that okay for each product นะครับ how much นะครับ the amount paid how much could I sell นะครับ you can see that there are นะครับ all of the headings that we have got นะครับ we get Mr. Joe Mr. Smith and so on that are our customer we have type of goods we have sellers นะครับ the seller because actually one chart can be displayed two axes at a time so it just like use the color to help distinguish นะครับ the seller for us as well นะครับ so this is the pivot chart that is created correspond to your pivot table that you have got นะครับ okay you can see that okay when you have pivot chart save the file again just in case นะครับ you also have the drop down list นะครับ to filter นะครับ to help filter the data in here as well for example if I want to see just what Mr. Smith purchased from us นะครับ you can see that in here the chart is the interactive chart is updated automatically if you say that I want to see just movie DVD and toys นะครับ I don't want to see the book I want to see movie DVD and toys นะครับ okay I click OK so you can see that right now it's just Mr. Smith transaction where he purchased movie DVD and toy from us colors are still in use นะครับ orange color represents Cindy's transaction blue represents Andrew's transaction that he sold to Mr. Smith for us นะครับ and each chart tell us about the value นะครับ or the amount of money that Mr. Smith purchased นะครับ each product from us นะครับ so this is the pivot chart that help us in order to summarize the things that we've got from the pivot table นะครับ okay right okay นะครับ for the pivot chart นะครับ in this part I'll leave it like at this point นะครับ I will continue talking about the pivot chart and other visualization tools that we can use in conjunction with the pivot chart and pivot table in the class at 6 o'clock นะครับ okay right for anyone who cannot attend the 6 o'clock class นะครับ I'll record the video นะครับ and upload it for you นะครับ now the video for this morning class นะครับ I am editing it นะครับ and I think that it should be ready for you by around like maybe Friday morning นะครับ should be ready for you so that you can have time in order to watch it นะครับ okay then นะครับ up to this point do you have any questions ครับ anyone